Some of you are going to think I'm a crackpot junkie after 30 minutes from now.
Who's ever felt like they're not good enough? It is so common.
We'll all agree in this room that it's those broken moments that give us the opportunity to go within.
I was smoking, I was drinking, and then I fell in love, which was so inconvenient at the time.
Probably for the first 30 plus years of my life, I was really scared of the truth. The thing about truth is, it's bullshit.
Nobody gets through life unscathed. We all look at that as if our life is screwed up, that is actually an opportunity for us to grow and expand.
In 2019, the Wellness Base Camp returns.
In Fremantle,
Newcastle,
and our first ever international adventure in Auckland.
2-for-1 tickets are under $100. Get them before they run out at thewellnessbasecamp.com.
TheWellnessCouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is, if I hate motherhood right now, how good a mother am I? So before we dive into this one, we'd love to remind you to jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au, and on the homepage there, drop in your email to join our tribe. And once a week, we hope, sometimes it's once a fortnight.
I was thinking it's been a little while lately.
We're certainly not spamming you. Let's put it that way.
Yes. I love that spin. That's a very positive spin, Jules.
Our intention is to send you an email that has links to everything we've put out in the world, blogs, guest posts, places, different podcasts.
What's going on in our world.
Yeah, what's happening in our world, with a bit of a picture and a wrap-up, usually just a little bit more intimate than what you get on socials. So to sort of hear more from us during your week, it's nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe.
This is juicy, this topic.
Well, it's interesting actually because I actually jotted this title down. I'm not sure if you recall, Bridge, but the other night after we got off one of our group webinars and we were talking as we do because you're on a bit of a high after having just been live with a group of women. And this came out of a sentence you said to me and I was like, I'm writing that down. That feels like downloaded gold.
There was a lot of downloads after that little session, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was, yeah. So this actually came out of that and you were just like talking, and what about this? And what about that? And I was like, yeah. So I was wondering if we could perhaps start with story about how you came to monologuing this sentence.
Yeah, sure. So I think we found new layers to my birth story with Sylvie was really kind of how we got to that. Because, and I so love the truth that when our energy is held beautifully, we are able to access parts of our psyche and parts of our hearts that we didn't realize that we'd not listened to yet. And I think just through various, areas of conversation, I found new emotions that I hadn't felt yet, new pain that I hadn't probably let myself feel after her, in relation to her birth and how that went. And I guess my own way I felt about how I entered into that. So that's sort of how it came about. And I really, through opening that channel of emotion and allowing that to move through me and be held by you as I move through that, it really gave me access, I guess, to a whole bunch of stuff to ponder around this motherhood journey and around.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we often forget that this is part of entering the storm, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that's what you did. We had a conscious conversation that tapped you into new awareness and new ways that kind of bust open previously held beliefs or perceptions. And in doing that and being willing to sit in the pain, because it's painful, and not trying to run away from it or rationalize it away or say all the ways that it's still good and fine and okay, and all the ways I'm still good and fine and okay, and all the ways she's still good and fine and okay, is to just let it be. And you had some beautiful waves of emotion, and I just said to you, just feel it. Just let it wash, you know.
Until there's nothing left.
Until there's nothing left. And you did. And then it was like bang, 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 bang. All these downloads happened all at once. And I think how extraordinary, isn't it? Because the resistance or the pain is always the way. And when we're willing to listen to it long enough to feel it and let it, instead of being stored and kind of like the bottle top or the bottleneck holding something, we let it kind of wash through, and all of a sudden all this new wisdom and insight and inspiration comes.
You get almost given a new level of access to yourself and to your inspiration, I suppose, too, and to what you're working on. And so one of the things came out was, you know, finding new edges to ourselves that motherhood calls us to. And particularly when we have a really high value on mothering, and if it's come from fantasy too, which so often if you're on this conscious path, you can create a whole bunch of fantasies about what it's going to look like, how you're going to mother, how your children are going to relate to you, how your children are going to relate to each other. And you will, in the greater the fantasy, the greater the nightmare you're going to run into as you are called to bust those fantasies open. And so what if you find yourself in a place where you are feeling like you hate motherhood right now and you don't want to be there? You know, what does that mean? How good a mother am I when I feel like this? And that is something that I posed.
And what does it mean? If I hate motherhood, am I actually the mother I think I am, or the mother I actually want to be? Or do I actually value motherhood in the way I thought I did?
As much as I thought I did.
They're big questions, aren't they?
They are. They really are. And I think, you know, by nature, our developmental process, the way that our values shift and change, they're going to call us into, you know, new areas where we might have, when we will realize that old ways of approaching things are no longer going to work, and old beliefs are no longer true for us anymore. And sometimes there's a resistance, I think, into letting go of things that have kept us safe or that have kept us on a track that we were comfortable with. But really our growth is calling us into being willing to have the self-awareness and courage to be okay with looking different now, to be okay with viewing our children through a different lens or through a more open-minded lens, and perhaps we might have viewed them before with a different set of information that we were, you know, going into motherhood with, or viewing childhood with, or viewing ourselves as. And so I guess I had a few different ideas about how we could, you know, what our line of self-inquiry could look like when we do feel like we're in that space of, you know, loathing, I suppose. Because it's there, it's purposeful. I don't think it's something to escape. I don't think it's a place where we need to chastise ourselves. I think it's a place to get curious and be willing to listen to ourselves, because that rub is there to help us, you know, open up to more of ourselves, more of our authenticity, and more about what our children are bringing us too. Because, you know, the raising of children is perhaps one of the most profound tasks we're given in this world, as, you know, if we choose to, as women. But it's also one of the deepest, most painful sometimes paths to grow as a human, because you are facing yourself all of the time, and you're facing all of the judgments that you put out onto the world. They'll often come back to you in the form of your child for you to re-examine and for you to, you know, grow up through, I suppose.
When I was thinking about this question, you know, how good a mother am I? The one that instantly that hit me first was one who questions, one who seeks to know more, who seeks to understand more. Because if you were just not as good a mother as you actually think that you are, and then you were just running, it's all good, we're fine, we just keep going, there would be no conscious thought about it. No. The very fact that you're pausing, you're questioning, you're feeling pain, you're feeling into that pain, and you're recognizing perhaps some guilt, perhaps some shame, perhaps some disappointment and stuff happening that's falling off of a pedestal and all of that stuff, perhaps a bit of identity crumbling. The fact that that is happening says to me it is a top value of yours. And we can often think that the things that are our top values are the things that should be largely effortless and pain-free and Just that whole concept, sometimes I think spiritual concept of it was meant to be, it would be easy, it would flow, it would just be easy, easeful. Easeful is the word. And I think that that can be a bit of a fantasy because the very point of pain is growth. And the very point of growth is more compassion, more insight, more understanding, and therefore more wisdom and the ability to access more and serve more in this world. You can't have wisdom without pain. So to expect that your top values, where the things that light you up the most, that you have the biggest gift in this world to give, will come without pain is a total illusion. So I think, how good a mother are you? A fantastic one, because you are sitting there going, is this enough? What's here?
Am I enough?
Yes.
Which also really calls us into, you know, for you and I, it is again, like we seek to learn, like our learning's never done. And that creates fuel and greater service. And, you know, to flip it, where would we be if we weren't asking ourselves, how good a mother am I? You know, because that question keeps us in our integrity in this value on motherhood. Because if we weren't it's like anything, like how do I get better at this? So like anything we value, if you love running, you're always going to be looking at how you can improve running. If we love, you know, this, and of course love, when I'm saying love, I mean sometimes you freaking resent it. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Sometimes you hate training for running. Sure. You're still going to ask yourself how you can get better.
And I think that that's all our kids are ever asking of us, to know more, to seek more, to understand more. And I think that is the purpose of this conscious parenting journey, is not so you can do better parenting.
Yeah. whatever that is.
You don't do parenting.
No.
You don't do it to your kids. What happens is you stretch and expand your understanding and your perceptions, and you become a more wholesome person. And that is the purpose. Because when you are more wholesome, you raise more whole humans. So the fact that it's hard right now, as Bridgie touched on, was a signpost. There's nothing wrong with things not being right. And there's nothing wrong with where you are right now. We are never off path. We are always on path. So the question is not, how do I get out of this? What's going wrong? The question is, why are you here? And why are you here is like a friend. Why are you here? What are you here to teach me? What is it that I'm seeking to expand or learn? What does this tell you about where you're at, the beliefs and perceptions you currently have? Perhaps even, what is it that secretly, maybe even not consciously to yourself, you are really wanting to change or see some shifts in, but you haven't consciously been able to take that bull by the horns? How does this push you in that direction? What is it that you need right now? Radical self-prioritization to feel like you can hold more. What do you need to feel back on your game again? And if you think about how you want to feel, then what are the activities that you can do that have you feeling the way that you desire to feel? Do that. Why aren't you doing that? That's a belief. Right.
Yeah, what are all the reasons why you can't do that? Because likely even hearing that can bring up for you, but I can't because of this, or I can't because of that, or my responsibility's here and I've got to do that. And you know, that kind of out of control kind of.
Well, it's always justification. I think whenever we're being defensive or trying to justify our place or position, whatever that is, it's actually hiding something that's a little bit more vulnerable and painful.
Yeah.
And something that is just a belief. It's not a truth. And is it still serving you? Is how you're currently running working for you? Because if it's not, what needs to change? What needs to change in your mental state, and what needs to change in your beliefs that are seeking to be shattered, and what needs to change functionally in your world? Where do you need to speak up about your needs? Where do you need to prioritize your needs? We all have the same amount of hours in our day. It's our beliefs that tell us how we spend that. So what do you need? That's what I took from this question. And I think we often don't ask ourselves, what do I want right now? What is it my deepest self desires? What is it right in this moment my heart is yearning to do? And then do the very radical thing of doing that. Like, be damned. I said to Bridget when she just walked in earlier, my husband and I were laughing, she goes, gosh, your house is quiet. It's like, yeah, we got those kids off to bed because we've had a really big week/weekend. And we had my daughter's birthday party. And we were, if you've had a birthday party, you know how exhausting that is. And randomly, my 15-month-old was happy playing on her own. And so I snuck off down to the bedroom because usually us being silent, lying down somewhere is like a beacon.
It's like bees to honey.
It really is. And we usually have 30 seconds, there's one, 30 seconds later, there's two, 30 seconds later, there's three, which is lovely to have a family cuddle, but also sometimes you just want to lie there and
sometimes
have a
I just want some damn space.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so I said to Nick, let's go have a lie down. I was like this. And so I was like, I just want 20 minutes, just need a kip, just need to regroup, you know. So I laid down, snuggled into my husband and we were like, oh. And he started talking. We said, no talking. Shh. Just quiet, like this. And it was lovely. And then about 5 minutes later, my son comes down and I was like, oh. But then he just snuggled up next to me and I was like, that's okay. And he started talking, went, no, this is quiet. Shh. We all snuggled back down to sleep again. And then he got sick of it, so he left. I was like, great. Snuggled back down again and then had started dozing. And then my 5-year-old wanders in, Mum, Dad, where's the da-da-da-da-da? And I can hear my husband kind of mumbling and we've still got our eyes closed. I think it's in the this, whether that. And I'm like, why am I the bad person? I'm always the bad person. Lola, get out. Right now, we just need a nap. Go do something. I will talk to you soon. And I just thought, didn't even feel any guilt about it.
Yeah, you're really happy to own that.
Yep, didn't feel any shame about the fact that it was completely unconscious. Didn't hate the fact that I was abrupt and rude in the way I was speaking to her. I was like, I know this is a finite amount of time and I'm not wasting it with my flowery language. Get out.
You just have to remember that next time you get that back again to be okay with it, right? Don't pick up on her tone, right?
Yeah, Ashley, it's
Touché.
fair call. Yeah, it is. Yeah, totally fair call. It's really good. We need to be reminded of this, don't we, actually?
It's true.
Yeah.
Because I notice sometimes when my son will, just not be super chatty or friendly or just be a bit abrupt with me and I'll like bristle and I'm thinking, fuck, how much must I do that too? Like I need to be willing to accept this from him if I think it's okay for him to accept it from me, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
So anyway, but I love it that you just owned that.
No,
you owned your priority and resting.
That was my point.
Yeah. And making that okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And as we know, they feel it anyway.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
And all I needed was 20 minutes and then bang, we were back again, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think that it needs to be as hard as we want to make it.
No, I get it. I also think, if we get stuck in this whole how good of a mother am I then, or if I'm hating motherhood, and we're thinking about our behaviours or what we're seeing as reflective of us hating it or not enjoying it. And that might be like avoidant behaviours. So we might not want to play with our kids as much, or we might just want them to go and entertain themselves. And, if we find ourselves in guilt around that, opening up our perspective to see, okay, well, how is this helping their growth and giving me what I need so I can put back in? Because I think so often we can get caught in this giving, even when we really don't want to, just in order to be of service to them, without considering how they can become more resourceful when we're not always doing everything for them, how they can end up working through challenges with their siblings without us, getting involved better because we're not hovering around, helicoptering, trying to make it the best kind of situation we can. I think we need to look more widely at how this is actually purposeful for them too, in alignment with what they value. How are they getting, how is that little bit of perhaps freedom that they might be getting than through your apathy, I suppose, of service to them, so that they can be more kind of on their own, in their own rhythm, without us sort of getting in there and trying to shift it out the way that we want to see it, or whatever it is that our usual behaviours are that we label as good mothering. I think it's important to look at what we're judging here and why, and what we're guilty about and why, and see those as signposts to help us learn more about how we can observe our dynamic with our children, and also what we see our role as being. Because I think often in mothering, it's just as much what we don't say and do as what we do say and do with our children. Because our projections are powerful on our children, deeply powerful. And when we can have some reservation with how we enter into things with our children, we also give them chances to work it through in their way, which we might find is not our way, but it's allowing them to build that trust within themselves and that connection to themselves. Because if they're not always orienting to us because we're always there, then they actually have to orient to themselves, because they know in this moment, mum's not here for me. Like, mum's dealing with her stuff. Mum's not attuned. And we can judge that and say, but attunement's so important, and, it's all about like connection. But how does the disconnection with our kids serve them? I think it does. And I think it'd be narrow-minded to not look at where that is useful for them.
Perhaps even for yourself on your own journey.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, if you're on a conscious parenting journey, largely it's because you're trying to undo or redo your past.
Yeah.
And so it's thinking about those parts that you considered really wounding, those times you were left, your needs were not met, your emotions were not considered, you were shut down or shut out. Where did that actually serve you for putting you in touch more deeply with your own inner voice?
And I think also too, when we are finding ourselves in these places of, whether it's Groundhog Day or whether we're just finding it difficult to summon the energy to enter into stuff with our kids, it can also get us to confront our previously held truths about parenting. Like, for example, if we have a strong belief on screen time, and you have another child, and you realize that you're going to have to revisit your maybe hard line about it, revisit your reasons behind why you hold the views that you have, because your life is shifted now, your priorities are shifted now, and the way that you parent has to shift with that. And I'm certainly finding that even at the moment with the dynamic with my kids and with where I'm at, that my son's spending a good chunk of my daughter's nap time on the iPad. And, initially I had this reservation with screens, but I had to really lean into that and see that that's just a fucking dogma that I'm stuck in this whole screens are bad, don't let your kid have too much screen time, without looking at it critically about what my true values are, about what my child's true values are, about what they're choosing to spend their time on the screen doing, and how that deeply serves their own mission right now, which for my son is Lego and building and creating, which he only ever watches on the iPad. And so it calls us into more authenticity and congruency with ourselves and with our children, because when things get painful, we're called to burn away the subordinations that we have to others, whether that's, friends, parents, ideologies, authorities. That shit has to burn away. Kind of like when you're sick, all the shit that doesn't matter, it has to burn away so that you can get super clear on what you need right now. And I think the same thing happens when, motherhood feels hard. We have to revisit the stuff that we were holding on to as truth in order to burn away what's no longer needed, and revisit what our, absolute values are. Which for you and I, it's honouring our children. It's honouring, their growth in this world and who they are, and being courageous enough to listen to the voice within them and to help them grow in alignment with who they are, not who they think they should be or who we think they should be. who they are showing us they are. And sometimes we need these spaces of pain and loathing in motherhood to be the catalyst for us to reshape how we show up for them and for ourselves.
Also, I do think that the point of it being hard is usually a sign to me that there's a transition happening. And I often find myself, because I have reverence for transitions and I have some level of awareness around them, when something's hard, I do find myself kind of almost taking a step back and going, okay, who's transitioning in this dynamic here? Because something's shifting. Someone is shifting, and because of that we're all shifting around them because we're in a dynamic. This is the thing with family dynamics, is when one person shifts, changes, grows, transitions on, it shifts all of the energy, and so everyone in that vortex changes and is required to do a counter turn, you know, in some respect. So I do kind of think when it's hard, I'm thinking, what's the transition here? Who's moving somewhere right now? And how can we look at where that growth is for them and where it is for us, and kind of buffer around that, offer some softness, maybe, you know, a little bit around that. So that's also what I think about when things are getting hard. What do you think about?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just that, how can I, when we feel this immediate desire, because we'll all have a pattern that comes up for us, right? Like when things feel hard, like we might have a fight or flight, or a desire to shut down, or a desire to run away, or a desire to fix or change. But I think being present for as long as we can in those uncomfortable feelings and making that place okay allows us to be able to feel into the wisdom of it, being able to see and enter into it consciously as a transformative act, and knowing that when we stay with it, we're going to find on the other side the gift in it, even when it feels difficult. And, you know, we're also more able to access our own stories of why it feels hard, what it brings up for us, just like transitions that our kids are going through, whether they're getting ready for daycare or kinder or school, and that brings up our stories of you know, whatever stored pain, whether we're conscious of it or not, is there for us. Because it's an invitation for us.
Isolation.
How can you be okay with
being left, disconnection?
You know, like your fears around how your child might settle in, you know, where does that come from in you? Do you have a story on feeling rejected socially, and how can you own your story and make your story more comfortable in your own psyche, in your own heart, so that you don't project that story onto your child and make it theirs? Because we grow, you know, and we're called to connect more deeply with ourselves when we're facing social isolation, when we're facing rejection. Yes, they're not nice things to face, but they also build us. And when we don't want our child to experience these things, we are essentially saying, well, I don't want you to experience meaningful growth, because they can be meaningful experiences to have. And so, you know, when we're preparing our children for transition, we're also preparing ourselves for it, because we're preparing ourselves to re-enter potentially painful places in our own stories. And to look at those two of those things together.
And when our children invariably go there, sometimes they can drag us along kicking and screaming. You know, if you haven't pre-prepared or planned ahead, so to speak, and you just find yourself kind of walloped in there, then, you know, it can feel more like you're scrambling rather than having a sense of, all right, I can see what's going on here. It's hard, but we can move through it. It's a very different place to be, to kind of feel like you're in crisis management mode. And you're in a reactionary, like, triggered stuff where things come out of your mouth and you're like, where the hell did that come from? I didn't even know I felt like that. That's like a signpost for us to understand, wow, like this, I was so triggered with my child then, and this, you know, what came out doesn't even sound like me. So clearly I've got some stuff here. What is that stuff? How can I do my inner work to be okay with this transition that my child is facing? It's really And what does it bring up for me as well? Because we're in dynamic, it's never just them.
No, never. And it's also a co-creation. You know, we are co-creating in a way what they're experiencing, because we need to experience it too. But the more, you know, I feel like the more that we can not foresee, but be willing to enter into what might come up for us, the more we can kind of be on the front foot for them too, in terms of what they may face and how we can equip them with, you know, and all this stuff's in our transitions toolkit. It's the stuff like, how do you help them, you know, enter friendships, enter dynamics in play, understand how to find, you know, kids in the playground that might like to play something that they're going to play. If somebody doesn't want to play with you, how can you work that out for yourself? How can you be okay with that? How can you connect with your own sense of resilience in yourself so that you're not going to be falling to pieces because you can't find a friend? And, you know,
and how as a parent do you hold that space?
Yeah.
And lovingly and with compassion still feel connected to your child as you watch them struggle. Potentially. I mean, maybe not. But I always think forewarned is forearmed, right?
Yeah.
And if you have an opportunity to, you know, gain some wisdom, which maybe you've got out of here, I'm not sure, and resource yourself with some additional tools, you may not find that you need to go there because you do the learning consciously rather than being unconsciously kind of swept up in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I think noticing what what beliefs you're going into, you know, whether that environment with, like, what are you expecting of your child, and, you know, why is that you're expecting that of them, and how much of that is your stuff, and can you separate out the two? And it's just really interesting to have that level of inquiry with ourselves about what our children are entering so that we can, I guess, co-create something with intention.
Yes. Which is what we really want for you. So I just want to remind you, our Transitions Toolkit, which is an ebook downloadable off our website, nourishingmother.com.au/shop, is 50% off, saving you $22 until the 30th of November. So please check it out. And after that, it will go back up to $44, which still, for the information that's in there, it's all of our wisdom collectively combined, plus, you know, just mum wisdom on how to move through transitioning our children and therefore ourselves, or perhaps the other way around. I mean, who knows?
And I think sometimes too, even starting with a self-inquiry questioning can be super powerful, because then it will even almost change what our kids bring up, because we're entering into that first. We're kind of going, what's my story on, like, social stuff, and what am I feeling anxious about, and why, and how I can get to a more of a level of comfort with that. So that, you know, my child might,
so you can pave the way.
Yeah, you can pave the way and embody that confidence that you would love them to have, but that doesn't actually feel authentic to you yet. You know, how do you embody that confidence? And I mean, you do that when you do the inner work. You do that when you recognize that, you know, you're parenting yourself as you enter into the parenting of your child through this transition.
Totally. So please connect with us on Nourishing the Mother on Instagram and Facebook. We do love your messages, your private messages, your emails, your podcast topic requests, or, you know, I'd really love some more information on, can you expand on what you said here?
Yeah.
Because it really gives us somewhere to go, and we definitely want to take the conversation where it's relevant to you. So please keep reaching out to us. We promise we read every single email.
We really do.
Yeah, we really do. And we do our best to respond to them as well. So please connect with us.
Yes. And connect with you, Jules.
Oh, you beat me to it. Thepleasurenutritionist.com, and you, Bridge.
Suburbansandcastles.com. And remember to nourish the mother to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.